Hey tea friends, in this episode we'll be learning about white tea from Zhenghe County. Zhenghe may be the only contender to rival Fuding, the undisputed darling of the white tea world that we covered in detail last episode. Despite being a runner-up in terms of popularity, let's explore why Zhenghe deserves a deeper look into what makes its tea not only competitive, but uniquely special. Let's check it out.
Hey tea friends, we made it to Zhenghe County and we're with the Yang family, and right now we are inside their production facilities, and this is really the magic of Zhenghe white tea. The specific difference between Fuding white tea and Zhenghe white tea is that Fuding lower down the mountain can take advantage of that pre-rainy season direct sun withering, whereas here higher up in elevation they have to wither the tea typically indoors. That's become the convention here. So 48 to sometimes up to 72 hours of indoor withering. This is a slow conversation with the phytochemistry and the atmosphere, where the enzymes are slowly oxidizing. And that lends a bit of a more mellow, sweet, and I believe more ageable white tea than the very bright characteristics of Fuding white tea. So we're here, and this is Baimudan. This is mid-April, and so white peony, which is 1 bud, 2 leaves, on these racks here, and they have these production facilities running at about 60% humidity and about, 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, which is about 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And so doing this for about 2 days and then drying it very briefly in a low heat oven will produce Zhenghe white tea, style white tea. So grateful to be here, and we will now go check out some tea gardens. Alright, so we're here with young Master Ye. He's following in his father's footsteps. He's just getting started here, but he's doing a great job. We just met his father. Amazing family here that specializes in wild/abandoned/ecological tea garden production of Zhenghe white tea. And so he was just showing us this last step, and you might be thinking like, hey dude, you just showed us all of this indoor withering. What are we doing outdoors here in Zhenghe? So this is the very last step, and it's almost arbitrary where this step happens. And we've seen this here in Panchi and Fuding, where they have this last step indoors actually, so it's a little bit of the reverse, where typically they do the withering outdoors there. But this last step, it doesn't matter where it is, but what they're doing is, after it's been withering and it's about to be dried in these low heat ovens, they're looking for this floral fragrance. And so they're just always going around smelling for a specific fragrance to then put it into the ovens and just stop that and just halt it so it self-stabilizes into the optimal fragrant and aromatic condition that it's in. And so he's just showing us this, and it is indeed getting much more floral than the entire room that we just saw indoors. Hey y'all, so we are now in Fuban Village. This is right down the road from the Ye family white tea factory, and there's not a whole lot going on in this village. It's mostly just growing a few vegetable crops. But about in the turn of the century, around the year 2000, it was thought that the tea gardens up at the top of this mountain that we were going to was abandoned. They used to produce, I believe, just green tea here. So it was abandoned and recently reclaimed by the Ye family, in which they now make 40 to 50-year-old trees for white tea, that is. And so we're excited to go check out these recently reclaimed, formerly abandoned tea gardens here at the top. So let's go. All right, so welcome to Fuban Village. This is an abandoned tea garden here. The Ye family specializes in reclaiming abandoned gardens, ecological tea gardens, as well as semi-wild, sort of like this one. And we just hiked up from Fuban Village, a small micro village here in pastoral Zhenghe County, on a single lane little path that just spiraled up this hillside. And we're here at about 1,000 meters, just below 1,000 meters. And you can just see this hillside was a more conventional terrace plantation, but around the turn of the century, the Fuban villagers abandoned these gardens for the convenience of lower elevation gardens closer to their homes, because the price that they were likely getting for that tea at that time wasn't very high. So they didn't want to keep on reclimbing these mountains to get this tea up here. But luckily, we have a more specialty tea market here for white tea producers like the Ye family, and they are now reclaiming these hillsides and making some spectacular tea from these semi-wild 40 to 50-year-old mixed cultivar gardens here. So really cool to be in this somewhat unglamorous, scrubby hillside, but beautiful, beautiful, sweet countryside nonetheless. All right, so we've just discovered this little baby, this next generation of a tea plant here, probably 1 or 2, 3 years old maybe, and this has naturally sprouted under the boughs of these taller, leggier, allowed to grow wild because they've been abandoned Fuan Dabai cultivar plants here in Zhenghe County. And so once the seeds propagated, the flowers were pollinated and the seeds fell, this next generation now falls under a different category, because the definition of a cultivar is something that's been bred to have specific genetics, specific characteristics, so that you can taste and smell certain things, and that delivery is homogenized in the cup. So this Fuan Dabai thicket right here, all of the plants are genetically the same, and so they'll have that uniformity within the brew and perform a specific way that's dialed in because of that cultivation. Now, because this is escaped cultivation technically on a genetic level, this is now called xiao sai cha. So that's the heirloom catch-all definition for existent plants that are not in a cultivar umbrella. So I find that really interesting that even this first generation after cultivation now gets the name xiao sai cha, the heirloom variety. Okay, so we're back at the Ye family tea factory. We're tasting the teas from this garden. If you've had the 2023 Wild Shomei, Zhenghe Wild Shomei, then you've tried some of these teas from this garden before. But here we were fortunate to try this 2022 Wild Shomei. Super beautiful. The year of stuff turns out really, really green, and you can just see in the matter of 2 to 3 years that it's become a little bit darker. The tea soup is a little bit more complex, darker as well, oxidized, layered, really, really nice. We were very privileged to try the small amount of 2017 Baimudan that they have. This pluck is a little bit more buddier. 1 bud, 2 leaves, of course, is what Baimudan is. And I enjoy this family's tea a whole lot because of the ecological component of it. There's nothing fancy that they're doing on the back end as far as production. They're just simple wholesalers for other retailers. Typically in China, they have no international clients, so except myself, of course. So they're doing a very simple, beautiful task of reclaiming some of these abandoned gardens around their neighborhoods and turning it into some pretty good white tea. There's, again, nothing fancy or special that they're doing. They're just displaying and getting out of the way for us to enjoy the ecological cleanliness of these higher elevations in Zhenghe County. The next day saw us paying a visit to the intangible cultural inheritor of Zhenghe white tea, Mr. Yang Feng. More on what this title means later, but in short, Yang Feng is considered the most authoritative voice on Zhenghe white tea. He's not only a skilled and influential tea maker, he's a respected preservationist of traditional tea culture and craftsmanship. Let's go check out what he's up to. All right, so we're here with Yang Feng. He's the intangible cultural inheritor of Zhenghe white tea here, and he is showing us this impressive covered bridge here that has defined the convention of Zhenghe white tea withering. So what they are doing here is withering these tea leaves in a very thin layer on these bamboo mats in this well-ventilated, specifically covered bridge that breathes in and out. So at the daytime and the nighttime, he has described this as the bridge breathes in, and at night, moisture comes in and air breathes out. And so this is a conversation with the atmosphere over the course of 48 to 72 hours. And this has become the definition of Zhenghe white tea, and is the main difference between Fuding white tea and Zhenghe white tea is this long indoor passive solar and wind influenced withering here. And he does all of this, of course, traditionally, and doesn't do this in a humidity or temperature controlled environment. And afterwards, what he will do is traditionally charcoal bake these tea leaves. So here we have this beautiful Baimudan, and it just tastes incredible after it does this long withering. It's super complex, super sweet. It's very well layered in its structure and its mouthfeel. And with that last charcoal baking step, it just really pops it and makes it a very succinct, beautiful white tea expression. All right, so we're checking out the charcoal baking down here in the basement at Mr. Yang's factory. And he is getting some Mudon Wang here, and it has been basically these leaves. I wanted to show you this. It's suspended about right here, and underneath, let's see if we can. So I wanted to show you this. So basically, this soot that you see, there are charcoals underneath this, and it is covered with this soot, and the charcoal is baked down so well that there's no smoke that is emerging at all to smoke this. So there's no smoky flavor. So these coals are managed and covered in a way by its own soot, so that it's about at, I think, 60, 65 degrees Celsius, which is about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And what they do is they use these tools and then they just round it out so that there's the correct distance between these coals and these tea leaves, and eventually they'll turn this very, very slowly and very, very gently. So this is very different than charcoal baking that you see with Dansong Wulong or Wui Rock Wulong. And this is just basically the traditional finishing step that they would do instead of the modernized oven baking. And that just wicks away the remaining moisture. And from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, this is comfortable for the body. This is warming for the body, and so it will be comfortable and warming to drink. So I really love that he's abiding by traditions here. He has to. He's the cultural inheritor. This is what he does, and so I'm very pleased to work with him.
Wait, this might actually be a good time to explain that I actually very sparingly purchase tea from Yang Feng. See, the thing about designated cultural inheritors is, I find that they're not always who I want to be working with, as the price of their teas can often be eye-wateringly higher due to the sheer prestige alone. Rather, they're who I want to be learning from. Personally experiencing their craftsmanship and hearing their brilliant ideas can be truly invaluable in forming a benchmark in which to gauge the rest of the industry. And for this reason, I'll gladly meet as many of them as I possibly can. While it can feel pretty badass to build a contact portfolio of recognized inheritors of different prestigious lineages, it's generally the folks just a bit less well known, hungrier to produce competitive quality tea without the acclaim influence price tag, that are right in the pocket. Let's keep learning from Yang Feng about Zhenghe white tea for now.
All right, so we're here after the charcoal baking that you just saw. We're here tasting some of this aged charcoal baked. This is Mudon Wang. So Mudon Wang is one bud and one leaf. And they actually call Mr. Yang the Mudon Wang, so the King Mudon. They call him the king because he invented Mudon Wang. So there was traditionally Yin Zhen, by Hao Yin Zhen, the silver needles with one bud. There was Bacadon with one bud, two leaves. And he decided to use a grade that was in between that and invented a whole new style. This has become his signature tea, and I wanted to show you a good example of, basically there's the bud, there's the leaf, and they call it a fish scale, a very small little fish scale at the very, very end. And so it's one bud, one leaf, and a tiny, tiny little fish scale, third leaf at the end. That is his preference for that plucking grade. And that level of acuity, you have to get the timing of the tea sprouting at just the right time. So very, very small window of time, his tea pickers will go out and they'll really look for that plucking grade and harvest just that. And so that is, for him, makes the best type of Mudon Wang. And I just want to also talk about this pouring style that she's doing. So she just has a gaiwan, she has a pitcher, a Gong Mei, and then she's pouring from that first pitcher into the second one. And this Gong Mei just serves as the smelling picture for every single steep. So you can, as an enjoyer of the tea, enjoy the tea liquid and also just wave this around, give it a smell. And I just love this beautiful style where there's two Gong Meis, a gaiwan and a teacup. So I really just love their style. I mean, he is the cultural inheritor of Zhenghe white tea and also just a celebrator of traditional Chinese culture. And I love what he's doing, taking this into the future. And yeah, really, really privileged to be here.
Yang Feng is often quoted as saying, "Without culture, tea is just a leaf." And while it goes without saying, this quote certainly has a lot of resonance in its home in China. I'm sure it doesn't hit in quite the same way when considered outside of this context, where there's not nearly the same level of cultural foundation around tea. I'd wager that the West overall does not currently understand tea enough to value it as it truly is, treating it at best as just another intriguing enigma. I wonder, what could render this leaf into more than just a fringe beverage for us? Certainly replacing any semblance of its origins with flashy branding or a cult-like personality can't really suffice. Considering that it may be next to impossible for us to truly understand all the nuances tea represents throughout Chinese society and its history, perhaps we can try for a more fundamental cultural bedrock. What it means to be human, regardless of one's nationality or time period of life. Working with the land and the seasons, honing your senses, cultivation of a tactile skill, hospitality, intaking a plant's biology and feeling a physiological effect around others. In a fracturing world accelerating towards lifeless automation, tea can be a premier global substance to remind us what it means and feels to be human. Let's continue to recognize what tea actually is, and not settle for less until we encounter the soul it was given, and in turn, encounter our own.
Hey friends, we are in Jinping Village. This is in Zhenghe County in northern Fujian, on the provincial border of Fujian and Zhejiang province. And this is arguably one of my most favorite tea villages to get tea from. The clean air, the clean water. I mean, it's a high elevation, ancient village with Qing and Ming dynasty buildings still intact here. And the tea from this area is just super clean, very beautiful. I just love this part of China. So really incredible to be here and to taste tea from here as well. All right, so we're here in Jinping Village. This is the Shu family factory, and they are the largest producer of Gong Mei grade white tea here in Zhenghe. So what Gong Mei means these days, as it used to meant a plucking grade, so it was Yanjian, Baimudan, Gong Mei, and then Shou Mei, so it was the plucking grade in between Baimudan and Shou Mei. Gong Mei just now means a tea derived from the Xiao Saicha, the heirloom variety that is a non-cultivar in this area. So that means that you can have an heirloom Gong Mei Yanjian, an heirloom Gong Mei Baimudan, or a Shou Mei. And so they are the largest producers of the classification of Gong Mei with this new classification these days. And so here they have this is number 1 grade Baimudan, Gong Mei. They have a bunch of different grades. This is the leafier, more standard Baimudan, 1 bud, 2 leaves. They have a smaller Mudan Wang grade, 1 bud, 1 leaf. And so they're really just expressing out all the different types of plucking grades, even more so advanced than the traditional classifications of those big main 3 or 4. So here they have a Yanjian that the boss is taking out. And so why are they here in Jinping Village the largest producer of Gong Mei? So they actually have a lot of old trees here, and this is before all these new cultivars came in and people started to plant those. So this family just happens to have so many acres of heirloom plants that just have to be classified as the Xiao Saicha, the heirloom variety. And so now that's just called Gong Mei. So that makes them the largest producer of Gong Mei in Zhenghe. So happy to be here. They make some incredible heirloom tea, and let's go check out their gardens.
As we hike to the Shu family tea gardens, we learn that due to the remoteness of this village, there was a time when technically no larger town or city held administrative authority over tiny little Jinping. Therefore, during 20th century China's repudiation of old ways in favor of newer outlooks in industry, these reforms simply didn't get administered to some pockets in these rugged, undeveloped mountains. During a time when many tea gardens got pulled up and replaced with crops, Jinping, along with its impressive acreage of ancient tree gardens, went unaccounted for, falling between the cracks of history.
All right, so we're with Big Boss, Mr. Shu here, and he's taking us to these amazing ancient gardens that are growing out of the rocks on this hillside by the river in historic Jinping Village here in Zhenghe County. And he's just having us check out the moss, having us check out the lichens. A lot of these trees, some of which are now made into danzucha or single tree tea productions. And those trees have been seed propagating, self-propagating for generations now. So we have a mixed variety of a bunch of different trees of the what they call the xiao or the heirloom variety. And because Gong Mei is now defined by being produced by those heirloom varieties, again, you can make any style of white tea and make it a Gong Mei. So Gong Mei Yanjin, Gong Mei Banmudan, Gong Mei Shoumei, etc., etc. And regardless of whatever it turns into, he's able to make this into an incredible tea that's super mineral rich and nutritious, because these tea plants are drawing minerals from this amazing pristine area and from these rocks. And I'm just confounded by how beautiful the ecological conditions are of his family's tea, in which he's been here for generations. His family has been producing tea here for generations, and he is a native to Jinping Village here. The elevation here can reach up to 1,200 meters, and so I really love this high mountain white tea that you just don't really get by the ocean down in Fuding. So really a privilege to be here and to taste this man's tea. So we're here at this like overlook sort of pagoda thing of Mr. Shu's, and we were just down and following this stream upstream and checking out all of these heirloom seed propagated amazing gardens in Jinping Village. And this is the reason why I believe in a biased way, totally biased, and anyone can form their own opinions, but if you're matching up Fuding versus Zhenghe, Fuding does not have this. We're at 1,200 meters. The heirloom seed propagated old tree gardens here in Jinping Village, you just can't really find anything like that in Fuding. And of course the production styles are different. I believe that Fuding has a much better tea right out of the gate with that sun exposed withering. It's very bright in flavor, but the integrity in the larger leaves typically of the heirloom varieties, as well as the Zhenghe Dabai cultivar here in Zhenghe County, I think lends for a better tasting brew in the long run. So if you're thinking about aging tea, the mineral content and the amount of leaf material that there is for those enzymes to transform and oxidize, I think it will contribute to a more dramatic transformation in the long run. So maybe I'll say this: Fuding teas, I enjoy those bright flavors year of, but as far as an ageable investment and just overall, my bias is that I think Zhenghe wins it for me. I mean, just look at the ecological conditions here that we have in Jinping Village. I mean, super high mountains. We have bamboo mountainsides here with these heirloom teas, incredible plant life, beautiful water, and of course Zhenghe doesn't have this overall, but if you get really good Zhenghe tea, I don't think anything else compares as far as white tea goes.
All right, I'm pretty speechless. I mean, this waterfall in the top of Jinping Village, incredibly gorgeous. I'm most impressed by the clarity of this water. I mean, it is just crystal clear. I'm so tempted to just jump in right now. I don't think that's going to be kosher. That's going to be against the rules, but no one's around. I don't see any cameras. I might as well. So yeah, I'm just really impressed, and I feel like a broken record, but here's just another reason to love Jinping Village, specifically Zhenghe, with these high elevations. You can't get this crystal clear of a water down below near the coast. Yeah, I'm speechless. This is so beautiful.
Recognizing our time in these white tea regions was coming to a close, back at the factory I started to reflect. The more time I spend with tea farmers, regardless of their style of tea, the more I see the same tension. Yes, there are historic conventions and agreed upon ideals. Certain cultivars, terrains, and processes can feel baked into the very definition of a region's tea. But to survive in the modern era, a good tea maker has to respond to unpredictability, usually weather or the market, without relying on rigid tradition alone. They have to make exceptions and stay open to modern technologies. You'd be hard-pressed to find a Fuding white tea producer sun withering 100% of the time. Many favor an indoor-outdoor combination, monitoring leaves in temperature and humidity-controlled spaces as a safeguard. Zhenghe also utilizes compound withering. While most leaves are long-withered indoors, a skilled tea producer will absolutely use the sun when conditions are right. There are many ways to get from point A to point B. Know the rules, then break the rules. And for those who want to settle the debate of Fuding versus Zhenghe, while I've already let you in on my bias, I'll add this. Fuding has nearly every advantage. Major investment, political favor, large-scale plantings established decades earlier, an earlier harvest window due to lower elevation and specialized cultivars, as well as an accepted creation mythology that claims the entire genre of white tea. As the beneficiary of all this, Fuding is able to set the industry standard, and you can taste that. Zhenghe has almost none of these advantages, and the fact that it's even in the running should be reason enough for any tea drinker to get curious. In the end, it's all a matter of preference, but one thing is certain. Competition, diversity, and strong convictions are what builds tea culture, provides a more meaningful living, and produces some fine tea.